I finished all the filling and got it together. Had a bit of a time with these wheel fairings. They didn't fit too well, so I would just say whenever you're fitting any parts, try dry fitting them without glue first and see how things go. You might find you need a fair bit of filler and a bit of trimming before they'll fit properly, but they eventually went on okay with a bit of sprue goo. The wings, managed to get the joins there fairly good, and I've sanded all the edges. I've fitted tailplanes as well, and I've also painted some of the green bits, including these bits, which shouldn't be green after all, so I'll have to paint those out a different colour later on. I've left off the rudder and elevators and the ailerons that we cut out earlier because I want to do a slightly different paint treatment on those, but we'll come to that in due course. So we're very nearly ready to start the painting process, but before we do, there are a few little tweaks you can make to the stuff up and around here first. So first thing is, there's these little fairings that carry some machine guns, and they slot in there. The machine guns themselves that they've got moulded in are just a simple sprig of plastic on the end, which isn't particularly convincing and is fairly fragile, so it's more than likely to get knocked off. So what I'm going to do is slice that off, get my pin tool and locate the centre of where that hole was, make a mark, and then drill that out with a 0.6mm drill bit first of all. Making sure it's going in straight and it's not going to poke out the sides, don't go too far in. And then I'll follow up with a slightly larger 0.8mm drill bit, and so that this bit of 0.8mm brass tubing that I just happen to have will slide in. So I fitted one in place already, so you can see it on the end there, and sure enough the brass tube slots in quite nicely. So later on, after all the painting's done, we can fit some guns that have a hole in the end and that are a bit tougher than the plastic. So that's one thing to improve. The other thing is the exhausts, and similarly they don't have any holes, but they should have. So same process, mark the end where the hole should be, drill with 0.6mm drill bit, but again don't go too far, you don't want to be poking out the back, you only need an indentation really, and then follow up with a 0.8. And again, here's one that I did earlier in time-honoured fashion. So we'll keep these off because these will be glued on after all the painting's done. They're going to be a different paint colour. They slot in very nicely anyway, so it's not going to cause a problem. So they pop in like that, so they'll look nice. So next thing to do really is to get ready for the paint coat. It's a good idea to wash the whole model with a bit of soapy water. I have had a couple of kits, not often, I've had a couple of kits where there's a debonding agent applied to the mould, and that leaves a bit of a greasy film which paint doesn't like. You can apply a primer. I tend not to unless I really have to. It's just another layer of paint really. The acrylic paint is quite fragile on top of plastic, but of course we're going to put a coat of clear on and that makes it hard as nails, so I try and avoid primer. If you want to use primer, I'd say go for a car plastic grey primer in a spray can. Of course then you have to make sure you mask everything off before you apply it, so that's another good reason not to do it really. So we'll give this a wash and then try getting on with the painting.